Welcome back to Before It Breaks with Gabriella Pomare. This is the podcast for the conversations couples and families usually have too late. This is the podcast where we talk about the things people usually only say once the relationship has already cracked. The quiet things, the uncomfortable things, the things you whisper to a friend over coffee or you think about in the shower when you finally have 5 minutes alone. Or type into Google at midnight when everyone else is asleep and you're wondering whether what you're feeling is normal. I'm Gabriella Pomare, family lawyer, author of The Collaborative Co-Parent. I'm a mum, I'm a co-parent, and this is where we talk honestly about modern relationships, marriage, motherhood, divorce, co-parenting, communication, conflict, but repair, rebuilding, and the quiet moments that shape what happens before, during, and after a family changes. This podcast is not about perfect families. It is about conscious ones. For the before, for the break, for the becoming. And before we begin, I want to remind you that this podcast is for general information and education only. It's not legal advice, and it's not a substitute for support from an appropriately qualified professional. And remember, every relationship, family, separation, and person's circumstances are different. Now let's begin. Hello again. Can you believe how quickly these weeks are flying by? I get so excited every time Wednesday rolls around and I know a new episode is coming out. Now today, I want to talk about parenthood. Not parenting tips, not sleep schedules, not what pram to buy, and definitely not how to get your toddler to eat vegetables because frankly, if anyone has that answer, please send it my way. I want to talk about what actually happens to a relationship when a baby arrives, because everyone tells you that having a baby will change your life, but very few people tell you that it may change your marriage, your body, your ambition, your sex life, your patience, your friendships, your nervous system, your relationship with your own childhood, and the way you see the person that you chose. There is this idea that a baby arrives and two people are automatically bonded more deeply, and sometimes that is true. There are moments that are almost impossible to describe unless you have lived them. I mean, think about the first time you see your partner holding your baby, that tiny hand wrapped around a finger, the ridiculous songs you make up because you are so tired and you have lost all dignity. The look across the room when your toddler says something hilarious, and only the two of you understand why it's funny. Those moments are real and they matter, and they can be beautiful. But a baby doesn't just bring love into a relationship, a baby brings pressure. A baby brings sleep deprivation, money decisions, body changes, career questions, family expectations, invisible labor, gender roles, resentment, guilt, and a level of exhaustion that can make two loving people speak to each other like they are absolute enemies. And I think that that's the part that we don't talk enough about. Because sometimes the baby isn't what breaks the relationship. Sometimes the baby reveals what was already fragile. You see, before children, it's very easy to mistake a good relationship under easy conditions for a relationship that can survive pressure. You've got chemistry, you've got holidays and dinners and spontaneity, great conversations and weekends that feel effortless. But then suddenly love has a roster. Romance has to survive daycare bags and night waking and grocery orders and bath time and bills and appointments and school emails and work deadlines. And often one person saying, "Did you book the appointment?" and the other one thinking, "I thought you were doing that." And slowly, without anyone meaning for it to happen, the romantic relationship really shifts. You're still talking, but it's mostly about, I don't know, who's picking up the children. And yeah, you're still touching, but mostly because someone is passing you a baby or a towel or a lunchbox or a school note, a load of washing. And you're still sharing a life, but sometimes it feels like you're managing a household more than you're actually, in a romantic relationship. And that's a feeling that can be really easy to forget. Now, let's go to the movie Knocked Up. You know the one, it's pretty funny. But there's a very real question in that movie about what happens when two people are pushed into parenthood before they've really worked out who they are as a couple. And suddenly, chemistry is not enough. Fun is not enough. Attraction is not enough. I mean, parenthood asks a different question. Can this person become a partner in the real unglamorous, 3 in the morning, the baby is crying, and neither of us knows what day it is, sense of the word? You see, that is where a lot of couples get shocked. Because before children, a relationship can run on chemistry and fun and ease and attraction and shared dreams. But after children, it needs systems, it needs repair, it needs emotional maturity, it needs task ownership, it needs to notice the nappies are low without being asked. And we have to be honest about this because the cultural story around parenthood is often very simple. A baby arrives, everyone cries happy tears, and the house is filled with flowers, and suddenly life is supposed to feel more meaningful, more complete, more beautiful. And often it does. But let's be real, it also feels like shock. It can be beautiful and brutal at the same time. It can be the greatest love you have ever known, but also the most exhausted, resentful, unseen, touched out version of yourself you have ever met. And I think this is why the conversation around parenting and happiness is so interesting, because it challenges the idea that children automatically make people happier in the daily reality of life. Now, not because children are not joyful, of course they are. I love my children, but because the joy of children doesn't remove the labor of children. We're talking honestly here today. There's no lying, there's no Instagram. The meaning does not remove the sleep deprivation. The love doesn't remove the resentment that builds when one person is carrying more. The beautiful moments don't cancel the fact that your body, your relationship, your time, your money, your sex life, your career, your identity are all being rearranged at once. It's overwhelming. Parenthood can make life feel more meaningful while also making your relationship harder to live inside. Both can be true. And that is where the shift begins. Not because the love disappears, because love alone doesn't organize a family. Love doesn't divide the invisible labor. Love doesn't remember the nappies, the immunizations, the daycare app, the permission note, the birthday present, the dentist, the library bag, the next size up in shoes, and the fact that someone needs a clean uniform tomorrow. Love doesn't regulate two exhausted adults who both feel unseen and both feel like they're carrying more than the other realizes. Now, I know this not only because I work in family law and I've sat across from so many people whose relationships didn't fall apart in one dramatic moment. I know this because I am a mum. I know what it is to love your children so fiercely that it physically hurts, but still have moments where you miss the woman that you were before everyone needed something from you. I know what it is to try to hold work and children and a home and emotions and school notes and appointments and guilt and ambition and your own identity in the same two hands and feel like some days you're not really walking through life, you're just carrying it. And it's tough, and I can be honest with you today. This is something I struggle with every single day. The constant juggle and the needing to keep a relationship going when you are exhausted, when you are struggling with the person you were pre kids and who you are now. And I also know what it is to separate when a child's very young. And I think that experience changes the way you look at family life forever because you understand both the dream and the grief of the dream not looking the way you once thought it would. You understand that people don't usually end up in a lawyer's office because of one argument about lunchboxes or one bad night with a crying baby. By then, they're often carrying years of feeling invisible, years of thinking, surely they can see how much I'm doing. Years of feeling criticized, rejected, abandoned, touched out, lonely, resentful, or quietly furious that no one ever seemed to notice the load until it turned into conflict. Now, one of the biggest changes after children is that one parent often becomes the default parent. And the default parent's not really just about one person doing more physical tasks. They're the person whose mind never fully clocks off. You get me. They're in a meeting thinking about spare clothes. They're lying in bed remembering formula. They're driving and they're mentally checking what's in the freezer. They're noticing the rash, the small shoes, the birthday party, the daycare message, the permission slip, the emotional mood of the child after school, and whether their partner seems stressed or irritated or checked out tonight. It's not just physical work, it's mental and emotional scanning. And that's why the question, just tell me what to do, can feel so infuriating because the asking just makes more work. It's the noticing that's part of the work. The anticipating is part of the work. If one person is still the person who has to identify the task and delegate it and then follow it up and remember whether it was done, they're not actually sharing the load, they're just managing it. And it's that where resentment can become really raw. And look, this is not always gendered. There are fathers who carry the invisible load. There are same sex couples, blended families, and households where the roles are different or more complex. But let's be honest, in many heterosexual relationships, even today in very modern and progressive ones, traditional gender roles can creep back in the moment the baby arrives. Suddenly, the woman is expected to know everything. She knows what size nappies, where the wipes are, where the child last slept, which cry meant tired, what's in the daycare app, what time the appointment is, what needs to be packed, who needs sunscreen, who needs a gift, who needs shoes. And if she doesn't know, it's as if she's failed. Meanwhile, the other parent does maybe one of those tasks and is praised as hands on. Now, let me be clear. Involved fathers are absolutely wonderful and they need to be valued. But also, we have to be honest about the different standards. A mum is still expected to be a parent. A dad is often praised for being involved, and that gap can quietly poison a relationship because outside the home, he might be seen as a wonderful father, and yet inside the home, mum might still feel completely alone. And that's when you start getting those painful arguments, that sentence that so many couples know in one form or another. But I'm a good dad. And the answer might be, I know, but I need you to be a partner too. And those are not the same thing. You can love your children, but still leave your partner lonely. You can be playful and affectionate with the kids and still be passive in the household. You can be present for the fun moments, but absent from the invisible ones. And that's where love starts to fray, not loudly, but in the little moments where one person feels like they're becoming the project manager of the family and the other person's just waiting for instructions. And then I think we need to talk about identity. And I think this is one of the rawest parts of parenthood because you don't just become a parent. For a while, you can become unrecognizable to yourself. I mean, your body changes, your sleep changes, your time changes, your friendships change, your ambition changes, your relationship with your own mother might even change. I mean, even your name changes because suddenly you're mum in every room. The baby is passed to you first. The questions are directed to you first. The guilt attaches to you first. And the world can become very small very quickly. Now, if you're at that part of motherhood, of parenthood, let me tell you, the world is not over and it will change. Those first couple of months are really hard. I've been there twice over. And the reality is, you can love your child more than anything, but still wonder what happened to the parts of you that weren't built just to serve. It's okay to miss silence. You can miss your body. You can miss those spontaneous dinners and holidays. You can miss sex that didn't need to be scheduled around exhaustion. You can miss being touched because someone desired you, not because someone needed you. And you can miss the version of your relationship that had more play and less planning. You can just miss yourself. And admitting that does not make you ungrateful, it makes you honest. And this is why I love the movie Tully so much. You know the one. I think it really hits such a nerve. It's not just a film about motherhood. It's really a film about depletion and identity and loneliness. I mean, body changes, invisible labor that we're talking about, and that strange grief of becoming a mother, which is so beautiful, but still missing the woman that you were before. And there's something really confronting about watching a mother love her children but still feel swallowed by the endlessness of it all, because that is the part that we're often not allowed to say out loud. You can love your children more than anything. You can be grateful, but still feel trapped. You can adore your family, but still fantasize about that hotel room alone where no one's touching you and where no one's asking you where something is and no one needs something from you constantly. That doesn't make you a bad mother. It makes you human. Motherhood can be full and lonely at the same time. You're never alone, but you can feel unseen. You're constantly being touched, but not necessarily held. You're needed all day, but not always known. And being needed is not the same as being loved well. That distinction matters. A child needing you is beautiful. A partner seeing you, it's different. And often, after children, being seen by your partner is the first thing to disappear. I mean, the conversations become boring. They're administrative. Did you pack lunch? Did you get milk? What time is swimming? Did you pay that invoice? Did you reply to the email? And slowly, the couple stops asking the questions that actually keep intimacy alive. How are you? Are you lonely? Do you miss yourself? What do you need? What are you scared of? Do you still feel like us? And I think that's when love starts to really become logistics. And look, logistics are necessary, of course they are. Someone has to run the family. But if a relationship becomes only logistics, I mean, intimacy starts starving. It's not because there's no love, but because the love is no longer being fed. And so I think we have to talk about sex, about intimacy, because it is one of the things that couples often avoid until it becomes an absolute wall between. I mean, parenthood can change sex completely. There are physical reasons, hormonal reasons, birth trauma, breastfeeding, I mean, exhaustion, body image, resentment, anger, fear, and the very real experience of just being touched out. And for many women, it's not that they don't love their partner, it's that their body no longer feels like a place that they get to live in alone. You know, a baby's been on them all day, they're feeding from them, they're sleeping on them, they're grabbing them, they're needing them, they're crying for them. And then at night, the partner reaches for them. And look, even if that partner is loving, the body often responds with, I just can't give anything else today. And that can really start to hurt both people. I mean, the partner wanting intimacy may feel rejected or unwanted, and that's normal. That's fair. The person who doesn't want sex may feel pressured or guilty, probably resentful or ashamed. And look, if no one has the language for it, if people can't talk, the couple starts creating stories. You know, she doesn't want me anymore. He only cares about sex. Or she changed after the baby. We hear that one all the time. Sometimes all of those stories contain a piece of the truth, but not the whole truth. Because often underneath it, there's grief. Grief for the old body, grief for the old couple, grief for spontaneity, grief for desire that used to arrive naturally and now feels like another task. Grief for being wanted without feeling needed. And that is where couples need tenderness and not more pressure. The real question isn't simply, why aren't we having sex? I mean, the deeper question is, do you feel rested enough, safe enough, seen enough, and connected enough to want to come close to me? It's a very different conversation. Now, parenthood, it also changes ambition. And because we're talking honestly today, let's talk about ambition. I mean, especially for women. I read an article which was really interesting. Serena Williams was writing in Vogue, and she spoke about evolving away from tennis to grow her family. And that phrase resonated because it framed motherhood and ambition as an evolution, not simply retirement or ending. And it named what I think so many women feel in different ways, that motherhood can force negotiations with identity and ambition and time that men aren't always asked to carry in the same way. Look, most women aren't Serena Williams, obviously, but the emotional question is familiar. What happens when your child needs you, when your work needs you, when your relationship needs you, but your body needs rest? What happens when your friends miss you? And somewhere underneath all of that, you're still just trying to remember who you are. And I think that's why the whole idea of having it all can feel really cruel. Because if you're struggling, it can make you feel like you're doing something wrong. When often you're not failing at parenthood, you're just trying to function inside impossible expectations. You're trying to be present and successful and calm and attractive, available, emotionally regulated, patient, ambitious, loving, organized, and not guilty all at once. No wonder parents are exhausted. And when two exhausted people feel unseen, the relationship becomes loaded with arguments. I know you know this. I mean, we hear these things all the time. We experience them. The words are familiar. I got up 3 times last night, but I had to work. I worked too, but I took the kids Saturday. Well, I asked you to. You're acting like it was a favor. I can't do anything right. You don't even notice what needs doing. And I say this with love because I think most couples in this stage don't need someone to decide who the villain in the relationship is. They need someone to help them hear each other out before they become enemies. I mean, often people are both lonely, they're both tired, they're both unseen, but in different ways. The problem is when pain is not expressed carefully, it becomes accusation, and accusation creates defense. And defense creates distance, and distance creates loneliness. And loneliness becomes resentment. And resentment is one of the most corrosive forces in a relationship after children. And I think that's why this simplistic version of parenthood just doesn't work. It's not just the best thing or just the hardest thing ever. It's often both, and sometimes in the same hour. Now, another thing parenthood does is wake up our own childhoods. I mean, when you become a parent, you're not just raising a child, you're often re-meeting the child you once were. You start noticing the things your parents did, hearing the phrases come out of your mouth, making promises to yourself about what you will never repeat. And then one stressful afternoon, you hear yourself using a tone that you recognize and it shakes you. Parenthood asks, what did you inherit? What do you want to repeat? And what do you want to repair? And what pain are you trying not to pass on? I mean, actor Ryan Reynolds has spoken about having a really complicated relationship with his own father and wanting to connect and communicate really differently with his children because of that. And I think that that's one of the most relatable parts of parenthood because becoming a parent often forces you to confront what you inherited. You suddenly realize that you're not just parenting your child, you're also meeting the child you once were. And that's why couples think they're arguing about something like bedtime, but really they're arguing about, safety, control, respect, fear, attachment, old wounds. One parent probably grew up in a loud house and thinks conflict is normal. The other grew up in a silent house and finds raised voices threatening. One might believe children need stricter boundaries, the other believes children need emotional freedom. One overfunctions because chaos scares them, and the other withdraws because criticism triggers shame. And now these two nervous systems are trying to raise a child together, and it's 6:45 at night when everyone is hungry and someone has spilled yogurt on the floor again. This isn't just a parenting moment. This is a generational moment. This makes me then think about the public fantasy of parenthood. I mean, with social media and celebrity culture, it's been made so much harder. We're now seeing all day, every day on our Instagram, on our reels, the perfect baby announcements, the glowing postpartum photos, the matching outfits, the immaculate nurseries, the calm captions about soaking up every moment. And then we start comparing that to the reality of standing in your own kitchen in yesterday's clothes with a baby crying, a toddler refusing shoes, your hair still wet from a shower that you didn't finish, and someone begging you for dinner. Now, that is the gap that makes people feel like they're failing. Not because they are failing, but because they're comparing their full, messy life to someone else's edited moment. Get off Instagram, stop scrolling. This is where I think we need to be much more honest. You can adore your children and still find parenthood overwhelming. You can be grateful and still miss freedom. You can love your family, but still fantasize about that hotel room alone. And you can be a good parent, but still feel bored sometimes. You can be deeply committed to your partner, but still feel angry about how unequal things have become. And you can be happy and grieving at the same time. This is the emotional complexity social media really allows or shows us. It wants clean categories: blessed, thriving, obsessed, so lucky. But let's be real, parenthood's not clean. It's love with crumbs on it. It's tenderness. It's irritation. It's awe and monotony. It's joy and depletion. It's wanting time alone, but then missing your child so much when you finally get it. It's, looking at your child asleep and feeling your heart crack open, but then waking up the next morning and losing your mind because they will not put on their school shoes. Both are true. And we need to let both be true. So, what do we do with all of this before it breaks? I think the first thing is to stop pretending equality will happen naturally. It won't. You have to design it. So sit down and talk about the household like it's a shared system. Have the conversations you need to have before you're furious. Don't wait until you're standing in the kitchen at 9 p.m., exhausted, resentful to say everything. Schedule a weekly check in, even if it's just 15 minutes. Protect the couple from becoming only parents. Now, that doesn't mean, glamorous date nights necessarily. It's tiny acts of recognition. I love when I get a text that says, I feel you. I know today was a lot. When a coffee's made without you having to ask, or when someone takes the baby and says, go, shower slowly. And remember, desire is not only built in bedrooms, it's built in how people treat each other during the day. It's hard to want someone at night who has ignored your exhaustion all day. It's hard to feel close to someone who feels like another person to manage. And finally, I want you to know this. Repair matters more than perfection. You are going to snap. You are going to get it wrong. You are going to speak from exhaustion. The question isn't whether you fail, because you will. The question's whether you repair. Repair empties the emotional archive before it becomes too heavy. So maybe this is the truth of parenthood that we need to be saying more clearly. Children may bring the deepest meaning of your life, but meaning is not the same as happiness every day. You still have to protect your marriage. You still have to protect the person inside the parent. And you still have to ask, are we okay? Before the silence answers for you. Because the baby changes everything, but it doesn't have to break everything. It can grow you and deepen you and humble you and make you more honest, but only if the relationship is allowed to tell the truth about what parenthood's costing, not just what it's giving. And so maybe the question's not how do we get back to who we were before kids, because maybe you can't and maybe you're not meant to. Maybe the better question is, who are we becoming now? And are we becoming those people together? Because parenthood will change the marriage before anyone says it out loud. The hope is that you say it out loud before the silence does. I'm Gabriella Pomare, and this is Before It Breaks. And if this episode hits somewhere tender, send it to someone who is in the thick of it, not because they're failing, but because they are probably carrying more than anyone can see, and they need this really raw and honest conversation. Thank you for sharing it with me today.